So when we get into practice design, all the stuff I talked about yesterday, we actually get to writing down what we're going to do for the day. We have a few options in how we're going to design it. These kind of overlap. But so your block practice is going to be your traditional, we're all going to take BP right now, we're going to do the same thing, we're going to take infield right now. We'll do base running. It's all set up where they're doing the same things over and over and over again. It works. It's just not my favorite. We've been doing it this way for a long time. It makes a lot of sense as far as organizing your practice. You got a lot of players, maybe you only got a few coaches. Like, it is the simplest way to set up your practice, and it does work. Now, I personally prefer a serial practice over a random practice. Random is just like it sounds, it's kind of random. I've seen organizations do like 5 different stations and they tell the players, just make sure you hit them all twice and go whatever order you want. That's fine. I like a little more structure. So I like to use a serial practice where it is random to the player, but it's not to me. I design it out so that we're getting something that's a little bit more realistic. We're going to do some infield, we're going to do some defense, we're going to hit, we're going to do some defense, we're going to hit, just like a game would be. So we're not just doing all our hitting at one time and then all our infield at another time. It can get a little tricky when you're actually observing, because within a single session, you see the greatest improvements in block practice, because they are doing the same thing over and over again, and you see improvement in that session. But retention tests in the research has shown that retention is more limited in block practice. Retention is actually better in the random or the serial practice. So try not to be fooled by what the actual practice session looks like. Pay more attention to what are they coming back. Are they coming back getting it? You know, I think somebody had mentioned it today in a talk, like, guy throws a bullpen, he's got it figured out, he goes back out, and he doesn't have it. Like, we see that a lot with block practice. You see a little bit less of that when you go serial or random. I'm not going to talk about this, it's already been talked about. This is the space I live in. This is where I like to work. The only addition to this one is probably the perception-action coupling. It's not quite as relevant in the weight room, which is why it wasn't touched on this morning. It's a lot more relevant on the field when you have to perceive and react to the baseball. And then we can throw in differential learning, which is like it's actually more of like a randomized CLA. It is asking players to do stuff different every time, exploring different solutions. I will mix this in, but in general, I try to provide a little bit more guidance for the players. I will do bits and pieces of it. Hey, try fielding this ball different, try field the next 5 different, but I don't go like hardcore differential learning and let them just kind of go free for all. I think it does. I do believe it works. It's just I would probably get fired if I did that, so I choose not to. I want to look like I know what I'm doing. And then once we get into practice planning, so we talk a lot about needs assessment. It's there's kind of 2 separate needs assessments, and some people ask some questions about the weight room this morning. And again, I spent 20 years there, so that's kind of the space I live in. There is, when you get into the skill side, it's the same kind of questions. Do we design a practice for the whole team, or do we design practice for the individual player? And the answer is yes, because we need to look at what does the whole team need, what does the team need to have success, and this is going to be your fundamentals, your cuts and relays, your PFPs, your bump plays. Like, there are things that we have to do in a block practice style that is just rehearsal. Are they in the spot they're supposed to be in? It doesn't fit exactly in this skill acquisition, the ecological approach, but it's the reality of it is the cutoff guys need to be in the right spots. The pitcher needs to get over. You know, if you're running a wheel play or whatever bump play you're running, you got to practice them. They're important. When we look at an individual player, 3 basic psychological needs, and this is as we start to look at the individuality and how we actually work with our players. Players need to have some autonomy. They need to feel like they have a say in what's going on. This is not a baseball thing. This is from psychology. Everybody wants to feel like they have a say in what's going on. They want to have some level of competence. They don't want to feel like an idiot out there. They don't want to feel like they can't do it. So that goes back to challenge point that I talked about yesterday. We can't make it so hard that they feel incompetent because they're going to get discouraged, but we can't make it so easy that they're like, oh, I got this, I'm good. So my 4-year-old, he says he's got everything figured out. And then relatedness, they want to feel connected, involved, and supported. So really for me, the autonomy and the relatedness kind of go together, because I want the player to be the center of what we're doing. I want them to feel like they have a say, like they have influence on what's happening. And I also have to be the grown-up. Like if what they want to do doesn't make any sense, we got to convince them otherwise. One of my favorite quotes as far as teaching goes, tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I learn. And that goes back to those other 2 points, the autonomy part and the relatedness part. Have them be involved, have them be a part of the process. They're the ones that are trying to learn. Representative design. So this is basically the basis of what I shared yesterday on the infield work. Like, is our practice have in it what the game is going to have? Doesn't have to be exact. We don't need a live pitch. We don't need a live batter. But can we get a slice of the game that adds the context, provides the information? So the information is, how fast is the ball going? What is the spin? What is the angle? Are those things present in the challenges that we're presenting to our players? We're not looking for exact match to the games. Already said that. We need a slice of the game. We need parts of it. If we're taking BP, maybe we need velocity that day. Maybe we need a spin, a shape, an angle, something that gives us part of the game. Hitting tends to be one of the harder ones to make representative, because we can do spin, we can do velocity, we can do shape, but we can't do that front to back. We can't pull a string on a changeup off a machine. Like if as a coach, you don't have to be able to throw like banger curveballs or nasty changeups, but you do need to be able to add and subtract so the player gets a little bit off balance. It was in the strength conditioning presentation today, and actually probably talking about it right now. One of the fluctuators in hitting is that front knee flexion. So can I get into the ground and then hold that if the pitch is off speed? Can I hold that and make that swing? That's where people go wrong. We call it front to back. You go up, down, in, out, and then front to back in hitting. So finding a way to add that in so that they have to learn how to hold the ground to delay their swing to be able to get a good swing off on something that's off speed. Just finding a way to mix that into your practices. It could be a bounce. It could just be a crappy changeup. It doesn't matter, because they're so timed up to the same thing that's happening over and over again. And then we're looking to simulate the competition relevant information. So on the infield work, as talked about this morning, runner speed, what base am I going to, what's the situation, like put those thoughts in the players' heads. That's how instincts are trained. People in pro ball say all the time, like, you can't teach instincts. No, you can't teach them, you can train them. And they get trained by the experience and by it happening over and over again. And then, when we're designing our own practices, what are we missing? Somebody asked yesterday about, like, how do I tell a coach he's wrong? I don't try to tell him he's wrong. I'm trying to tell him what we're missing. I try to relate it to what the sport's asking for and what practice is asking for, and see if we can close that gap. We don't need to do something different. We need to do what we're doing better. Feedback, a lot of words. Intrinsic feedback, this is going to be some of the ecological stuff, like, is the player is kind of giving themselves the feedback. What did it feel like? We're not being evaluated. The instructors aren't telling them if they're doing it right. They're just trying to figure it out on their own. So it's kind of self-organization. It's probably more self-regulation than self-organization. I won't get in the weeds on that one. But and the task feedback, like, did they do what they were trying to do? Am I trying to hit the ball forward, or am I trying to hit it 5 to 25 at 95 miles an hour? The augmented feedback, there's a lot of overlap with the intrinsic feedback, because if they know the goal and they know what outcome they want, it falls into augmented feedback too, but there's overlap there. So the two biggest things with augmented feedback is this right here, knowledge of performance versus knowledge of results. So knowledge of performance is what we traditionally do as coaches. We tell them good job, we tell them they did it right. We basically are just giving them feedback, oh, that was a good swing. Knowledge of results is, did I do what I was trying to do? And this has been shown over and over again to be the most powerful feedback loop, is knowledge of results. That's going to promote that self-organization. That's where some of the tech fits in. That's where mustard would fit in. That's where the TrackMan and those kinds of things fit in. Am I getting the result? Is my movement producing the action I want? Versus, does my movement look right? Does the coach say I'm doing it right? And then the timing of feedback, a lot of research here. It can get a little tricky because research is broad. Most of the research shows that the best time to give feedback is when the player asks for it. But we all know we have different players. We have some players who will never ask for anything. We'll have some players who say, how did I do after every rep? So trying to figure out that balance and make sure they're getting what they feel like they need. And if you feel like they need too much, then we have to change their mind, because they're going to feel like you don't care if you're not giving them the feedback that they want. They found that through, they did a few of them, but it's called a yoked study. So there's two groups. One group gets feedback when they ask for it. The other group gets feedback when this group asks for it. So the frequency of feedback was exactly the same, and we saw that the group that got it when they asked for it just did much better. And as far as like the ecological approach, the approach that I use, I try not to give a lot of feedback. I often am forced into it because the players want to know if they're doing it right. But I try to ask a lot of questions about how it felt, what are they trying to do, did they accomplish what they wanted to do, how do they think they can do it better. I try not to be the keeper of the answers. I try to be a guide to help them find the answers. Cueing. This is a big part, obviously, of what we do as coaches. Some people will say cueing doesn't fit in the ecological approach. Some people will say cueing doesn't fit in the constraints-led approach. The reality is every cue is a constraint, and every cue is going to, if they're listening and they're doing what we ask, it's going to change what they're focused on. So we are manipulating their focus of attention. If we're going to start talking about internally how to move their hands, how to move their legs, how to move their body, they are no longer focused on trying to hit or trying to throw. There is a time and place for internal focus, but I again prefer to live in the external. And then once you get into external, you can have near or far, towards or away. So there's a lot of options within external. And sometimes you can use an external for an internal, okay? So like if I don't like what a guy's doing with his hands, I'll talk about his bat. It's like 1 inch away, but it changes things. That's actually the research came from a lady named Gabby Wolf at UNLV, was doing a study on a ski simulator, and she had one group try to move their feet, and then she put a piece of tape 1 inch below it, and had another group try to move the tape, and the people that were moving the tape were having much greater success than the people moving their feet, and that kind of just started this whole like internal versus external debate. But when we look at the simplest version of like the external, near or far, I'll use a weight room example. If I'm squatting, I can focus on trying to drive the bar up or trying to drive it through the ceiling. So it's like, it's near is going to be just driving it up, far is going to be driving it to the ceiling. I could say a towards cue is driving it to the ceiling. I could also say push the ground away. Now all of a sudden I'm looking at an away focus. So everybody responds differently. There is no roadmap to which one works for which kind of athlete, but just trying to say things different to see what kind of response you get. I work with a lot of coaches. I've worked with a lot of coaches over the years, and the one thing that I see too often, less now so, is coaches that just say the exact same thing over and over again and don't understand why things aren't changing. So like, play with your cues, play with the thoughts you're giving your players, and just see where you can get there. So, baseball skills simplified. This is the space I live in. Tomorrow I will be discussing force production expression. Today I'm talking about interception targeting. So baseball really is just 3 skills, and it's actually 2 skills, but I've added the top one because being able to express force makes those other skills better. From a strictly skill standpoint, interception, catching, hitting, and base running. So base running is the same at the skill level as catching a baseball. The only difference is we're moving through the world and we're creating optic flow, so it appears as though the base is coming to us. We still have to intercept it. A lot of research in long jump and some different things for that idea, and then catching and hitting are the same. Then we have targeting, which is just throwing. A fielder trying to hit the cutoff man, first baseman, pitcher pitching. So, interception. I'm going to start with catching required velocity model. So, the required velocity model says that as humans, the way that we couple our actions with a ball approaching us is that we move our hand at the velocity and in the direction required to meet the object as it arrives. So it's a shortcut because our bodies are lazy and they want everything to be as cost effective as possible. It is a shortcut that allows you to not have to try and guess where it is and make micro adjustments, but to actually just be able to move roughly in the direction with a few little adjustments to meet it as it gets there. That being said, that model for catchers receiving can be super powerful, or it can be a challenge as a coach if you're trying to get a guy to beat a ball to the spot and try to move the ball. So I will touch on that in a second. Hitting, what we're trying to do is we're trying to close the tau gap. So tau is time of arrival or time of collision. So we see the ball approaching us. The rate of the expansion of that ball on our retina tells us when it's going to hit us. If you guys have ever been driving down the highway and you see a car coming like on the bridge above, like you can tell if you would hit that car or not. Just by looking. I don't know, maybe I'm the only weirdo that does that, but I'm always just kind of watching the world, but like you can kind of tell, you're like from a long ways away, you know it's coming. When you're going to cross the street, you know if you can make it or not, and that's tau. That's a learned skill, but we all have it. So in hitting, we're trying to close the tau gap. I'm trying to take a barrel of a bat and get it to where the ball's going to be. It's not some predictive model. It's actually, I'm coupled to that. That's why you see really high pelvis rotation velocities if a guy can get to a fastball inside, because he sees that and he knows he has to get out front, so he rotates faster to get to it. And then base running, just one thing I wanted to touch on this. Dave McKay is our base running coach, one of the best ever done it. When he arrived, I was talking to him about like what we're going to teach, and we teach our guys to hit every base with the right foot. And when he said it, I was like, that's insane. You got a 50-50 chance. How the hell are you going to hit every base with your right foot? On a turn, not running straight through, on a turn. So he kind of laid it all out for me, and he puts cones down. So he requires them to take very short turns. So like at third, don't touch the grass. Very short turn. So he has a very constrained route. And because the route is constrained, it's consistent, and because it's consistent, the players learn to self-organize to hit with the right foot every time. And that's where I got into the base running as interception, because it's what long jumpers do, it's what triple jumpers do. They're going to hit that board, even though they're running however many meters, they're going to hit that board with the correct foot every time. So that's just a little tidbit that we use. But it only works if the route is consistent. They will not be able to self-organize to get to the right foot if they're not running a consistent route. So back to, nope, I'm on targeting. I added slides today and I don't remember where I added them, so I'll get to it. Targeting, pitching, basic targeting task, fielder. Fielders throwing is a nested task, so it's nested because they have to field the ball and make a throw. And anybody that's worked with infielders, you understand that the throw actually starts before they field the ball because of your route and your footwork and the different things that you need to do to get into a position to throw. We can't really say that to young players because they do need to pick the ball up first, but as you look at it at higher levels, it is nested. So they do have to work together. Visual strategy and perception. So this is just basically like, what are you telling your players to look at? I asked this question, we had a COVID shutdown, everybody had it. So I did weekly Zoom calls with our coaches, and I started asking them questions like this. What do you want your infielders to look at? Do you want them to watch the pitcher track the ball in? Do you want them to watch the hitter? Nobody had an answer, which was really eye-opening to me, because I'm like, well shit, how am I supposed to analyze if they have a good visual strategy if we don't even know what they do? So the reality is everybody needs to have a good strategy. We don't have to tell them what to see, but we kind of do have to tell them where to look. We have to know, where do I need to look to get the information I need? What is my strategy when I'm hitting? If I got a guy that can't hit a curveball, pretty good chance he's not seeing release. He has a couple strategies there. He could do a visual pivot where he starts on the hat and pivots out. He can do a soft to hard focus where he starts with a soft focus at about release, and as the arm comes through, he focuses into a hard focus. Those are kind of the two options we've seen in the research. The problem with the research is that those are the only two options they found, and they haven't said which one's better or how to teach it. So, good luck. That's it. Like, how do we test? How do we train it? We got eye trackers. We got different things. Obviously, very cost prohibitive for most people. But I think just starting with challenging your players to use an advanced strategy, challenging them to use an advanced strategy in practice even when they don't need it. Because when we have no uncertainty, they can pick the ball up late. When we have consistent velocity, they can pick the ball up late. They can use really, really base level strategies that just aren't going to work in a game. I'm going to skip this because we just talked about it, but it's basically what they need to focus on and why. Sorry, I'm trying to skip to this. I think this is my old presentation. Doesn't matter. Trying to figure out how that happened. I must not have deleted the other one, the one I added the new slides to. So anyways, I'm going to go back to slides that aren't in here that were supposed to be in here. So, because I didn't want to touch on it because I had a slide for it. So back to catchers and the required velocity model. So in 2023, we had we still have him, a catcher named Gabby Moreno, who's got lightning quick hands, throws everybody out, really good player, but his receiving scores were garbage. We use a data point called strikes looking above average, SLAA or SL plus, to look at basically how does he rate with the rest of the league. He was 57th in the league in strikes looking above average. He actually had, from March 30th to July 22nd when he got hurt, when he went on the DL and I worked with him, he was 57th in the league and actually had negative 50 strikes looking above average. So he lost 50 strikes that he should have gotten. It's talked about yesterday, keep a strike. He was not doing that. And I was asked to take a look at it. I never worked with catchers in my life. But I started watching his videos. I was like, man, his hands are quick. He's really good. Like, I don't know why these aren't strikes. Then I got thinking about the required velocity model. So in the required velocity model, as I said, the ball's here and my glove's here, I'm going to meet it. If this is the edge of the strike zone, I'm probably going to meet it, and the momentum of my glove and the momentum of the ball is going to pull me out of the strike zone. So now I have to be really strong. And this is what the catching coach kept telling me. Oh, he's just not strong enough. He's not strong enough to move that ball. I don't care if he's, you know, the Hulk. Like, that's going to be really hard to do because we got momentum moving us out of the strike zone. So I was trying to figure out, like, how do we harness this strategy that everybody uses to be able to move this baseball. And all we did was change his setup. So ball's on the edge of the plate. He was a one knee down, work bottom up. And I heard that over and over again. And I was old school. Like, I was kind of like, I don't know, whatever. And then I started looking at him like, well, shit, everybody that's good does it. So there's got to be something to it. But what I realized was, he was doing a technique but not appreciating the principles. So yes, the bottom of the zone is great for just working bottom to up, but we're looking for margins. We got pitchers with sweepers, we've got changeups that fade off the plate. We need to be able to move that ball back into the zone. We had guys that threw cutters up and in. Down to up doesn't work for those pitches. So what I had him do is I just had him start changing his setup. So we split the plate in half, and if he wanted a slider down and away, and this is the corner of the plate, instead of presenting and dropping and having to come out and get it and pull it back, he would present and he would drop down here. And now we're using the required velocity model to actually just move him right back into the zone. He doesn't have to manipulate anything. Starts with the glove here, ball starts coming in, he moves his glove at the velocity required to catch the ball, and all of a sudden he moves it right back to the middle of the zone. So we did that with the corners. We worked on his setup, so he would get here. If we were on this side of the plate, he would present and he would drop to this knee, and then he could work it back. If it was here, he would drop down here and he'd work it back, versus what he did before, which is just drop it down, and wherever the ball went, he had to try and go get it and pull it back. Top of the zone, we had him not drop, because the principle was work the glove from outside the zone to inside the zone. It wasn't about a technique of working down to up. It was getting in a position where when I catch that ball, it's back in the zone. So we worked a lot on like the right-handed cutter up, presenting, getting out here, and then pulling it back. And he went from, so that year, -50. This year he was +53. So we flipped 100 strikes just by changing how he sets up and where he starts with his glove. Because, and again, he was already elite. He just didn't have the details. He didn't have the principles. He was just doing a technique that he was taught. So, sorry. I had video of some really good ones and some really bad ones. I added it this morning at 4 a.m. and I lost it. So, you guys saw some of these this morning, okay? We do a lot of very similar drills, but the only, there's a couple little tweaks here and there. So when we do rollies, you'll watch these guys move their hands back and forth. So we're having them move their hands back and forth because pitchers are going to miss. It's easy to say, yeah, I want the ball here, let's set up here, let's go get it. But what happens on the miss? The miss is where we lose more strikes than anything. So if I want the ball here and it's here, the best way to get it and to use the required velocity model and do the things I want is to move the glove out and come around and go get it. So I don't want them, we call it a two-part move. I don't want them to go straight to the ball. I want them to create a route, just like an infielder would create a route around a ball to get around it to make a throw. I want them to do the same thing when they're catching. So when we do our rollies, we have them moving their hand back and forth and then working. You'll see them come around and try to go get it. This was just, we were trying to do some curveballs. So one of the things young catchers do on curveballs often is they move too early. So I try to encourage them to move as late as possible, because your hand will move at the velocity required to meet the ball. So if they can just wait, then they can just move fast and rip it right into the zone, rather than coming up too early and then have to grab it and then move it. And now you've created a two-part move where the umpire clearly sees where you grab the ball and then move it. We're trying to trick him into not knowing where I caught it. Knowing, and this is where I had the biggest issue early on with the new style of catching, was like, I'd watch guys frame the ball and hold it in the middle. I'm like, well, we know you didn't catch it in the middle of the zone. Because growing up, like, framing was like, just tickle it. Just try to move it a little bit, trick them. Well, now it's, they know that I moved the glove this much. They know I didn't catch it here or here. If I caught it here, I want them to think I caught it here. And if I'm quick and I get good routes and I keep relatively straight lines back towards the zone, maybe some arcs to it, then I can get more pitches. So we're trying to train that. So again, some of the same stuff. This, we got some bands on. We're just kind of playing with balance. It's our catching coordinator there. Just trying to just add different variables to these guys to their workouts. This is just our targeting. So I set up the V-flex and just have guys throw down to the base, trying to get them to narrow their focus. Targeting, basically all the research in targeting says get on the target early, stay on it, you're more likely to hit it. Common sense, but because we can't really tell what they're looking at, it's really easy to go to mechanics, why they're missing. But I want to control for vision first and then worry about mechanics. So this is just kind of a whole picture. So warm up in the weight room. This is Gabby, just doing some balance work, some aqua ball stuff, just getting him into his legs, into his position, just activating in, again, something that's more specific to what he has to do. This is something I started doing with him early because I didn't have permission to work with the catcher, and I did it in the weight room. So I just got it's a keyhole mitt. So it's a basket web that's down deeper because we do want him to catch it on the hand, not in the pocket. It's easier to move a ball if it's in your hand. So we use that keyhole mitt, and I fired foam balls at him that were really pretty quick. It's hard to catch. He's a Gold Glove catcher, and I don't know how many he caught, but it wasn't all of them. And then you'll see Gabby doing rollies with Robbie here. Same thing, very similar stuff. We use different weights. We mix up the balls. Some are weighted, some are not. Some are light, some are heavy, some are bouncy. But it's all pretty much the same stuff. Then we go to weighted balls here. So force equals mass times acceleration. If I'm not throwing at 95, I need to find something that at 40 miles an hour has the same amount of force that something at 5 ounces and 90 miles an hour. So it's a pretty straightforward formula. I don't know it right now, but it is force equals mass times acceleration. So if you have a 10-ounce ball, if you have a 5-ounce ball at 100 miles an hour, it has the same force as a 10-ounce ball at 50 miles an hour because it's a very straightforward equation. So we're trying to add that. We're trying to give him something that he has to move. So you see this, he's working on that move right here. He's setting up away, something he had never done before. Now he's just right there. He's able to make that move and just rip the ball back. No manipulation. Top of the zone, same thing. Get up there, get on top of it. We call it alley-oop. We want him to slam dunk that ball. We want him to get on it and pull it down, not try and pull it down this way. We're not trying to trick anybody by catching it deep. We want him to go get it and push it down. Big thing for him, he's only 5'9", so we have him get as tall as he can. First year I worked with him, he wasn't comfortable getting up there. Most umpires aren't going to call anything that's above the catcher's head, so you got to get your head up. So we just played with how we set him up. This drill here, he's just moving the ball. One thing I started to do with Gabby, because he's a vet and he's been around, moving the machine's a pain in the ass, so I set the machine up in the middle and I just told him, move wherever you want. If you want to work the ball back, just move to this side or this side. So you can kind of ignore the plate there. I just let him put himself in a position. So right now he's playing that. That's a glove side ball that he has to work back, but he's just moving himself into the positions he wants to get into to work on those things. The other thing that we do, you can see it here. So we've got the iPad facing him and it's on the TV and it's on a tape delay. So if he makes a move he likes or doesn't like, he'll just put his hand up, make sure he does this, and then he'll watch it. So constant feedback available. He's just doing exchanges. This is just his own drill. I don't know, seems to work. He's pretty good at it. So this was actually brought up yesterday in blocking with the one knee down. So these are some of the things we do to help our guys work on being able to move laterally because it is new. It is new. When you're on 2 feet, you can kind of jump out there and get in your position, but here now you have to learn to slide across the ground. You have to put that foot in the ground and create force. So we just throw some aqua bags on, we use a farm board, and we just have guys work on, can I really get out there, can I push, can I drive? It's just from a couple different angles, but it's just stuff, it's stuff that we had to learn to build in because it's a move they haven't done before, and you're only going to get so many reps of it in practice and in the game, so we just make a lot of stuff up, really. We just kind of look at what is the game asking of our athletes, and then we try to create things that provide what they're asking. That guy here, he's got an aqua bag on his arm, again, creating some instability, some perturbation, just another level of challenge for him to try and frame the ball. This is a mix of different catching drills. Like there's a lot of stuff we can do with these guys. This drill in the middle is a borderline curveball. Catch it, pick it, or block it. They have to do one of the three, and they have to start learning which one to do. I don't know, do you do any picks in high school, or is it block? You have catcher's pick? Okay. That one was new to me. That was weird to me. It scares me, but they practice it. Again, we want them to do it, they practice it. Does everybody know what I mean by picking? So curveball in the dirt, runner on first, or on any base, curveball in the dirt, we'll have guys try to pick it to make the throw because they're going dirt ball read. Guy on first is going to start going because he's like, oh shit, that's in the dirt. And if our catcher can pick it up, he's going to throw him out and we win. So, so we train that a lot. But our catching coordinator, he's great. He's a big challenge point guy. So he creates crazy challenges. Like completely non-representative, which there is a place for. He'll use foam balls with tons of carry. He'll, like, with Gabby, we would do a high carry fastball followed by the slowest curveball we could get, because Gabby was one of those guys who was a little jumpy. So just really trying to push the limits so that once the game starts, it's actually really simple for him. These were some, balls up in the zone. Can they move it back? Do they need to slam dunk it, or do they need to rip it to the side? So having an understanding of where they are in the zone and which way they need to go with the ball. And then we practice misses a lot with the catchers, because again, that's often where we lose our strikes. Hitting, we do everything. We do regular flips. Part of they have routines where they have drills and they do some flips, and some guys do tee. We do regular BP. Again, we try to set outcomes for them to shoot for. And then we go into some more specific stuff. So this one's just a barrier drill. Want them to hit the ball over the blue mat. Anything that doesn't go over the blue mat is a fail. Doesn't matter how hard you hit it. We want elevated to the pull side in this drill. Not all the time. Situation dictates. But like that, most guys are like, oh, it's a good hit. No, it's not. It's not what we want. So we want him to find a pitch that he can do that with. So he's starting to learn what pitches he can do that with, and what swings he can get off, and how we can accomplish the things we're trying to accomplish, rather than just swinging at everything and hoping that it happens. And you can see him start thinking, like, shit, what did I do there? What do I have to do different? And then this was one of my favorites. So this was, I got to be just about out of time, huh? This was double A. And this was a game we played. So this is time for performance, not for learning. So we set up the Rapsodo, and we played a D-backs line drive game. So you scored a run if you hit it 5 to 25 at 95 miles an hour, and you were out if you didn't. And we set the hack up like it was competition. It was hard. We made teams, and they had feedback. So that here was up on the big screen. So he won. But like this was hour and a half before the game. So baseball can be monotonous, and I know there's been a lot of talk about competition and making it fun and doing these things. And of course, somehow every time we have a team, it's Latinos against the gringos, but they claim it's not on purpose. I don't know, but it does create some energy. Yeah, this is actually last slide. So it does create some energy. It creates some, it really gives them something to try to do. Like they get bored. This game is really hard, and sometimes practice is really easy. And just trying to find ways to create outcomes that we want for the game that also is competitive, is fun, is something that they can be engaged in. And like I said, this was like late in the season. They're not playing for anything, but all of a sudden they're into it. And this was like a day-long competition, because we kept running out of time. We'd bring guys up and they would face each other. Oh, I guess I got a couple more. Pitchers, this is nothing exciting. We take some ground balls with pitchers. We try to do different things with them, because the worst thing you can do to an athlete is make them a pitcher. So we want to try to actually keep them athletic and keep them moving. So yeah, that's the whole thing. Sorry, it was a little rushed, but I wanted to get us back on schedule. So.